Welcome to Evilive, the live media commentary show that asks the question, why exactly does Beelzebub have the devil as a sideboard? Subscribe if you're new to the channel, because today we are reviewing the Castle of Llyr. This is the Chronicles of Prydain, I don't know. Book 3 by Lloyd Alexander. Now, it was originally published by Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston in March 3rd, 1966. So it's an oldie. I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it a goodie, but it's an oldie. Now, I started reading the Chronicles of Prydain because of the first two books, the Book of Three and the Black Cauldron, which were adapted by Walt Disney into the Black Cauldron animated film. And I figured, since I already read two of them, I might as well finish the series. And in the series that was purchased for me by my loving family, there were 5 books. And so this is the third of the 5, called The Castle of Llyr. And the entire chronicle is about Taran, this sort of assistant pig farmer who lives in Caer Dallben, this enchanter's sort of town, or not even really a town. It's more like just his homestead. And it's about Taran going from those humble origins to realizing his full potential. And it's just one of those stories, you know, it's targeted towards kids. This is a children's novel. It's really like a novella for an adult. You can read it in just a few hours if you just want to sit down and read it. But American Library Association gave this the Notable Children's Book Award, which is something. I don't know. So anyway, like I said, the entire premise of this particular novel is that Dallben, this old enchanter who runs this sort of, I don't know, estate, or whatever you want to call it, Caer Dallben, thinks that it's time for Princess Eilonwy, whom they have sort of taken on as someone who lives there because she just sort of showed up in the first book helping Taran, and they just sort of live together because she has nowhere else to go. Anyway, she is nobility, like she is a literal princess, and he thinks that it's time she learns what it means to not only be a refined woman, but also a princess. And so he's sending her off to the Isle of Mona to learn what it means to be a princess from King Rudlum and Queen Teleria, who reign that minor kingdom of Mona. And so on the way, Taran is going with her to sort of see her off on the boat and see that she gets to the castle safely. Gurgi is going because if Taran's going, Gurgi is definitely going. We still have no idea what he is, just this hairy humanoid creature that speaks in rhymes. So, all right. And Cole the warrior is seeing them to the boat that takes them to the Isle of Mona, but he doesn't actually go any further than that. Once they get to the boat, Cole turns around and leaves, and Prince Rune, the king and queen's son, basically see them from the harbor across the sea to the isle to the castle. And what Taran immediately understands is that Prince Rune is a straight up dope. He's just a dummy. He's incapable of performing the duties that he's assigned because he is a prince. And everyone else either abjectly ignores him or just runs behind him to clean up the messes that he creates out of ignorance and inability. And Taran immediately hates him. And obviously, one of the big reasons why is because Prince Rune really likes Eilonwy, and Princess Eilonwy really likes Prince Rune. And there's this theme that runs through all of this where, you know, at first Taran and Princess Eilonwy were friends, but Taran's getting older and he's starting to get these feelings for Princess Eilonwy, but he doesn't really know how to communicate the feelings. And he knows that Princess Eilonwy isn't really in a position to, if he did share his feelings, to reciprocate. She's still in this very tomboyish, you know, flippant adventure phase. Not a young woman by any stretch of the imagination. And so he keeps it to himself. And so he's just growing sort of jealous that Prince Rune is on a same social status level of Princess Eilonwy, and he wants to be there rather than him. So anyway, they get to the kingdom of Mona, they get to the isle, they go into the castle, and Eilonwy is sort of dragged off to all the women to learn womanly ways, which in this fantasy novel, it usually consists of knitting. making clothes and learning how to properly sit up and which utensils to use at which time and such, just etiquette type stuff. Because women don't adventure. That's, in this world, they are traditional medieval roles, not the adventuring thing, which is left to the men to do, and defending of the kingdom is left to the men, and Eilonwy doesn't like any of that. So Taran learns from the king that Prince Rune is going to be proposed to be married to Princess Eilonwy. And so that's another feather in the cap of why Taran doesn't like this kid. But he realizes that Flutterflam is there. Now, Flutterflam, you'll remember, first came into the story as a bard. He was a king, but he wanted to go adventuring as a bard. In the second novel, he locked himself down and he decided to just be a king. And in this third novel, he's gone back to being a bard because he really didn't like being a king. And adventure just sort of calls to him in certain seasons of the year. I think we can all agree that we feel the same pull. It's, whether it's spring or fall or whatever, you tend to want to get out of your house and just explore a little bit. Well, that's the same with Flutterflam. And so he's there, but the chief steward Mag, who is a a-hole, to be honest, forces Flutterflam to live in the stables, which Flutterflam doesn't actually mind. He prefers it there than in this stuffy castle. He left his castle in order to wander around the world, so why would he want to stay in someone else's castle if he doesn't want to be in his own? But then there's also this cobbler who's actually Prince Gwydion in disguise, because he believes that Princess Eilonwy's life is in fact in danger. And this is because, you guys remember from the first book, Achren, who is this once ruler of all of this realm, this evil enchantress, who seemingly was thought to be defeated in the first book. No one actually saw her body. No one actually saw her defeated. Is back, and she wants Eilonwy because Princess Eilonwy came from the castle of Llyr, which is also on its own island, and that is an enchantress's castle. And Princess Eilonwy has this heritage, this ancestry of being wildly powerful sorceresses. And so Achren wants to steal that magic, use it for her own ends, and so she needs Princess Eilonwy to do that. And so Prince Gwydion is sort of incognito in this kingdom of Mona in order to try to figure out who is going to try to take her, where Achren is, etc. Taran finds out. Prince Gwydion tells him, you have to swear an oath never to tell this to anyone. And then the two of them end up discovering that it's actually the chief steward Mag, who is working with Achren to kidnap Princess Eilonwy. And so when Taran approaches the king and queen, he's like, look, you guys need to go find Eilonwy. She's supposed to be here. She's not. She's in mortal danger. Achren is going to get them. They're just like, oh, poo-poo. Where are you hearing this from? And so he has to spill the beans about what he promised not to say, is that Prince Gwydion is here, and he is actually trying to stop Achren, and that basically creates this huge hunt for Chief Steward Mag and Princess Eilonwy. Now, the king splits it into two groups. The war leader goes in one group, and he has his son, Prince Rune, in the other group as the leader. And Taran's straight up like, your son can't do shit. Your son sucks. And just straight up tells him the truth about how horrible his son is at everything he's assigned to do. And the king eventually comes around, and he's like, yeah, I know. I know my son sucks. So how about you look after him? How about, he has to learn how to be a prince somehow, because he is going to be prince. There's no disputing that. So how about you swear an oath to me that you will keep him alive and you'll do your best to steer him in the right way. And so Taran, of course, he's going to do it because he does what's right eventually, sometimes reluctantly, like in this case, but he swears the oath to the king and they go running off. Now, as their war band is searching for the princess, Prince Rune, in sort of the dark of night, runs off in somewhere. And so Taran and Dolby and Flutterflam, not Dolby, I don't know why I said Dolby, Gurgi, go searching for him. They end up at this cottage where they find Prince Rune sleeping. Prince Rune is like, what? I just wanted to get somewhere to sleep, and there's this cottage here, so I just went to sleep here. What's the big deal? Meanwhile, this cottage has this tale surrounding it, that there was this giant named Glue who was doing alchemical experiments and ended up feeding these experiments to his cat and enlarged the cat to this massive degree. And now the giant's not here. We don't see the cat, but in the morning, the cat shows up wondering who the hell is in my house. And so this cat is seemingly trying to attack them, but really it's just impressed with Flutterflam's harp playing and wants Flutterflam to stick around. So Flutterflam diverts the cat's attention, everyone else runs off, and they eventually meet up with Flutterflam, who Flutter says that the cat fell asleep, and that's when he made his escape, which isn't true. The cat's actually tracking them, trying to find him again. So they end up falling into this tunnel, and it turns out that there's no seeming way out of this tunnel, but the giant is also stuck down here, and he needs people to experiment on in order to shrink himself so that he can then get out. So he captures the entire group, who again are just waylaid trying to find Princess Eilonwy, knowing that there's a limited amount of time they have before she is brought to Achren, and who knows what's going to happen then. So they're trying to figure out this way of getting out of this damn predicament. They end up having Prince Rune climb up and escape, and they actually end up sort of defeating the giant on their own. The giant ends up like hitting his head really hard on some of these walls or something, and it creates a small opening, and they all escape through that opening. But they do promise the giant that they'll come back and help him, work on his experiments and find out how to shrink again. Once outside, the cat catches up with them. They all freak out thinking the cat's trying to attack them, and that raven that Taran got from the last book named Caw diverts the attention of the cat and has it running off. They end up meeting Prince Gwydion at the shoreline where they head to, and Prince Gwydion tells them that, look, the princess has been stolen away on the boat. She was just laying low with the stupid-ass chief steward Mag, and they're already across the ocean over on the Isle of Llyr, at the royal house of Llyr. And so they all go across to try to break Eilonwy out. Taran goes up there. It turns out that Eilonwy is under an enchantment from, of course, Achren, who is forcing... Ooh, we got the rain coming in. I don't know if you can hear that. Forcing Eilonwy to do her bidding, but they're missing a book which Taran found in that cave structure that the giant was in. The giant was actually trying to use it. She also has the little light bauble that Princess Eilonwy usually carries around. He found it after she dropped it. So it turns out that this little bauble is needed to read the spell book. Now, it means nothing to Taran because he doesn't know magic, but it does mean something to Achren, who is looking for it. And so Prince Rune, once again, like an idiot he is, blurts out to Achren that he has the book and she'll never get it from him, but she's a freaking enchantress. And so she basically like freezes them all in place, making them, telling them she's going to kill them all unless they get it. Anyway, long story short, too late. The chief steward is shunned by Achren, who then goes and opens these gates that holds back the ocean levels to the castle. So the castle starts to flood. They end up rescuing the princess, and Achren is defeated. And she's not quite killed, but she is almost drowned and almost murdered and sort of loses her magic for a way. And in the end, they save the princess. Achren comes up, and Prince Gwydion gives her an olive branch, ostensibly, saying, look, if you want to change your ways, I'll help you, and you can be a better person. And it's sort of up in the air whether or not she's going to take him up on it, but she says she's not going to, but it's not really in her heart, it doesn't seem. So we don't really know the end of that, but we do know that Princess Eilonwy and Prince Rune admits that he screws everything up, but he wants to be better, and he wants to be a prince. Eilonwy doesn't want to marry him, and so that's probably not going to happen, but she chooses to become a lady, to learn what it means to be a lady, because she does love adventuring, but she also understands at some point she has to grow up. Everyone has to grow up. And so Taran ends up going back to Caer Dallben, thinking about her, and she goes off to the castle on the Isle of Mona to learn how to be a lady, and the prince goes with her. And it's basically just this wild adventure that just leads them to the very beginning again of learning that they do, in fact, have to go through events, self-discovery, self-analysis, and awful, horrid truths about oneself in order to grow up and become a young man or woman. And that's at the stage of the lifespan of Taran. I actually enjoyed this novel more than I thought I would. I burned right through it really quick. It wasn't particularly interesting in any real ways, but I did like seeing the reemergence of Achren, and I'm kind of excited to see where that goes. I'm hoping that she ends up working with Prince Gwydion in order to defeat the man that she taught how to be evil, and Arwen over at the in the land of the dead, who is the primary threat in the land. I'm hoping she ends up working with Prince Gwydion into defeating Achren. But who knows? Or not Achren, but I forgot his name. Anyway, the big bad guy. But who knows whether she will or not, and who knows where it'll go. It's only a kid's books, so they're little steps along the way of this greater journey. And I don't think the point of this whole series is to see the fall of the land of the dead. I think the point is to focus on Taran and his journey in becoming a man, or at least a young man. And he is well on his way to that right now. And that's kind of the story. So I would recommend this to any person interested in fantasy. The Chronicles of Prydain, they are interesting. It's not like this life-changing novel series like Dragonlance was for me when I was in middle school, or the Dragonlance Chronicles, or like Game of Thrones was for me when I started reading those books, the Song of Ice and Fire novels. So, that sort of redefined fantasy for me. So it's not like that, but it is a fun return to a nostalgic youth of your own. And what I like to do is sort of put myself in the mind frame of what age I would have been had I read this at that target age that they were written for. And I think I would have really enjoyed it. And so I highly recommend this for young men and women, girls and boys. Definitely check this book out. But also adults who just never got around to reading this series in their youth. It's not so bad. Check it out. I'm going to give this ultimately 3 evil eyes out of 5 evil eyes. It's good. It's not great. It's fun, kind of frustrating. But what else can you ask for in a kid's book? If we're being honest. So that is all I have. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Of course, if you want to support this channel, subscribe to the channel, click the like button, and leave me a comment what you thought about the Castle of Llyr and ultimately the Chronicles of Prydain. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And as always, remember, evil spelled backwards is live. So get out there and be evil.